All right. Hello and welcome to the next episode of 3D30, how to 3D print a company. 3D30, if you're not familiar, is Velo 3D's LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live channel. So join us every 2 weeks or so as we dive into a new topic. With the trade show schedule coming up, we're going to be moving this around a little bit. So make sure you follow Velo 3D on LinkedIn to get the latest show schedule. Today, we're going to be talking about some different topics. Obviously, how to 3D print a company. We're going to be talking at the company level. And I want to avoid some confusion here. For some people, 3D printing might be synonymous with the idea of easy or simple. But the reality, if you've tuned into some of our shows, can be quite different. 3D printing or additive manufacturing, still a young technology in a lot of ways and can be challenging to implement successfully. But the bigger the challenge, the larger the reward. And so what does it take then to build not one, but two successful companies that are utilizing 3D printing? So that's the subject of today's 3D and 30 session, how to 3D print a company. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about parts, customers, business philosophies, everything that's required to be successful as an advanced manufacturing company. And we will get a glimpse of the future-focused mentality that's required to solve some of these challenging manufacturing problems for today's most innovative companies. And don't forget, this is a live session, so please post your questions. We'd love to hear from you. I'm honored today to introduce two industry veterans on the show, Steve Rengers, president of Vertex Manufacturing, and Tim Warden, VP of Sales and Marketing at Vertex Manufacturing. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing well.
How you doing, Mike?
Awesome. So maybe if you can give the audience a little bit about your background, Steve, maybe you could kick it off. Tell us some about yourself and where you're coming from.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Yep. Steve Rengers, president of Vertex Manufacturing. Started out my career as an industrial engineer, spent the first 10 years doing traditional manufacturing and mid to high level volume manufacturing, making hospital equipment. And then I found out what additive manufacturing was back in 2005 when I joined a company called Morris Technologies here in Cincinnati. As the story goes, we grew to be one of the largest service providers of direct metal laser sintering technology as it was known back then. And General Electric Aviation purchased us in 2012. So I spent 4 years with those guys, moved on to Belcan to stand up an additive entity there, and started Vertex in January of 2020, together with my partner, Tim and Greg.
Right. And was that when you first got into Morris, that was your first experience with metal additive or just additive in general?
Additive in general.
Awesome. And Tim, a little bit about your background?
Yeah, also I've been in manufacturing pretty much my entire career. First number, about 15, 20 years, I was really focused on selling raw materials. Worked for a company called EMJ and Castle Metal, selling bar stock plate to manufacturing companies, OEMs. And then kind of like Greg, or like Steve, I actually was lucky enough, I knew the Morris family growing up with them. And in 2006, had an opportunity to come join the Morris team. So came over in 2006 and stayed on with them through 2012 through the acquisition by GE Aviation. Unlike Steve, I didn't stay on very long with GE Aviation at the time because they made that a cost center. So the need for a sales guy kind of disappeared. So I moved on, stood up a couple other service centers, one in Florida, one in Colorado. I helped stand those up. And then in 2016, GE acquired Concept Laser Arcam. And I came back to help with the commercial team there and did that for a number of years. Through that time, obviously I was staying in communication with Greg and Steve, and we always kind of talked about getting back together and, getting involved in some way, shape, and form in manufacturing. We knew we didn't necessarily want to jump right back into what we were doing at Morris, but we wanted to find the right situation to go after the right company that we could help and do some really interesting things.
And that led you to creating Vertex.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Steve was the first one on board there. He was the one that kind of led the effort in finding the facility and getting some of the first equipment. And then after they stood that up, I came in about almost a year and a half ago when I came in June of 2020 and helped lead the effort in getting our quality certifications in place and some other things. But at the end of the day, my job is really to go out and find sales and work with our customers in developing the relationships.
And so over that time period, how would you compare the differences between Morris's business model and what you've got at Vertex today?
Yeah, it's a great question. With both companies, the hallmark has really been around innovation, and that's critical with any young technology. You've got to be able to innovate, and so Vertex, we're really focused on the industrialization of additive. It's taken it to that next level. We started at Morris doing a lot of development work and had a lot of great opportunities there for future production needs. And so now we've got Vertex, and that's what we want to be able to deliver is on those production needs for additive, as well as blending the CNC machining or the post-build processing of additive parts.
And where do you see as the key differentiation between Vertex today and other companies like Vertex?
Well, for me, really how I look at that is that, we do have decades of experience behind us, as far as the additive industry goes and manufacturing as a whole. We talk a lot about, Steve, Greg, and myself, and, we get between the three of us, probably 50 plus years of additive metals experience between the three of us. But the team we put together here at Vertex probably have close to another 50 or 60 years of additive metals experience, everything from quality to manufacturing to project management. A lot of these guys, and luckily for us, are a lot of the guys we brought over that came back from the Morris days. So we have a really experienced team focused around additive metals, and obviously traditional machining too. The other guys that didn't have the background in additive metals have a lot of experience. In a lot of cases, our machinists that we do have could probably be the lead machinist in most machine shops in the area. So we have a very, very talented group here at Vertex Manufacturing.
Nice. And Steve, any color on that? What differentiates Vertex?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is understanding the applications. So obviously we've spent the last 15, 20 years catering to aerospace and medical opportunities. And we're actually expanding that, looking at firearms and automotive applications as well.
And, Tim, I did look at your LinkedIn profile and prep for this, and I did notice you had a quote on there. When you get a chance to bring the old Morris Technology leadership team back together again, couldn't pass it up. And you've hinted on this a couple times already, just getting the band back together. Like it's that kind of a theme. Like where does that lie? Could you talk about that a little bit more? What is it that you're looking to create there? What do you like about that?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, you go into business with people you trust. And so when we were getting back together or talking about what we wanted to do as a group, starting a small business in itself is very challenging. It's not easy. Obviously, when we were at Morris, we didn't see a lot of the other side. Greg took on a lot of that, of those responsibilities. But now, Steve and I are pretty much involved in control of the day-to-day operations, and it's challenging, right? So when you get into something like that, you want to make sure the people that are with you can depend on and work with. And as we build, even the team, we do the same thing. It's when we hire people and bring people back into Vertex, everyone understands it's everyone's has their responsibilities. But if something else has to be done, or there's times I'm back in shipping if I need to go package something, right? There's we're all in trying to help everybody here as far as making sure the team's successful. And that's really kind of what I really enjoy with Vertex, as far as it's really a team-driven environment.
So if you were getting the band back together, what would be your instrument?
Yeah.
So Steve, what are your thoughts on that? Kind of getting back together with this group that it sounds like there's a lot of trust that's been built up, a lot of experience that's been built up.
Yeah. I think we touched on it before, but innovation is really paramount. And so the team that we'd built before, they understand that. Whether it was Morris or now Vertex, we believe in the long-term play. So it's not all about the short-term gain. And that's important with additive, because you do end up with problems that need to be overcome. And the previous team, they understand that. They thrived in that culture, and that's what we're building upon today.
And you mentioned kind of innovation culture. At the heart of that, you're in charge of creating that today, fundamentally, right, as leaders. So what do you look for when you try to create a culture of innovation? What's at the heart of that?
Yeah, I believe it starts at the top. So Greg, Tim, and myself, we share that same mantra, and we instill that in our employees through communication. We try to explain the applications that the problems we're trying to solve, as well as I think we do a good job of imparting our passion for the technology and the general competitiveness of the United States. Those are things that we enjoy, we want to see more of, and the employees understand that and they buy in.
Tim, any thoughts on that? If you're going to build a culture of innovation, what are you looking to do there?
Yeah, at the end of the day, we never, when you get into manufacturing and partnerships, you have to learn, who your customer is, and the way they go about things may be different than someone else goes about things. So it's really important for us to understand what the expectations are for the customer. So, I'd love to say the first build's a great build and we're successful, but you do have a lot of challenges that you have to work through. And at the end of the day, what we promote here is, hey, things aren't going to be perfect. It's how you recover from it and move on. And at the same time, we will always make sure we're straightforward with our customers. If it's a high risk build or a high risk application, or maybe a hard time delivery to meet, we're pretty upfront about that. At the end of the day, we do not want to overcommit anything to our customers. We want to make sure we set expectations out front. But at the same time, when we do hit those hurdles, we're going to make sure we fight through them and be successful for ourselves and for our customers.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of mentioned that. We don't want to make it sound too easy, right? Like as we kind of mentioned in the header. So what are some tools to overcome these difficult challenges? I mean, you mentioned some already. Any other thoughts?
I guess it comes down to tenacity and the culture that we've set up. As Tim mentioned, you can't get upset when we make mistakes, but we got to learn from those. And you document that and you move forward. And that's the best way to adapt and overcome, in my opinion.
Nice. And I do want to remind everyone, we are live today. We want to take any audience questions. So if you have questions, things you're curious about, please go ahead and submit that in the comments section, and we'd love to hear from you. So with that being said, let me switch gears a little bit. I mean, the experience is something you mentioned before, and I kind of want to dip into that some. Over the last 20 years, the industry's moved a lot, right? So maybe give us some background here. I'm new to the industry. I've only been in about like two and a half years. You've got 10 times more experience than I do. What have you seen? What are the big things that have changed in the last 20 years?
Sure. Early days, people didn't understand additive, what it was capable of. That was somewhat driven by the hardware itself. There was a lot of cracking issues. So the applications that you would be able to use additive metals for were pretty limited. As technology is, improved, those applications have increased. And, luckily we were at maybe the forefront of some of that. So we got to see those things increase. In the very beginning, folks were using additive to decrease lead time for development programs. But that eventually gravitated into performance gains. So engineers understood that by combining geometries, they could leverage that, and the designs themselves got better, which led to greater performance. So what started out as just a lead time gain turned into a performance gain, and that drove the need for production. And so today, I think the game is a little different in that we understand what's capable in many regards, but now a lot of it comes down to cost. So at the end of the day, it still has to be competitive to traditional manufacturing. And that's what's some of the exciting things that are going on right now is additional lasers, bigger platform machines, increasing those applications so that more folks can use additive.
We do have a question here kind of in this same idea. What about the inspection of metal additive parts? What progress have you seen there? Opportunities, gaps? This comes from Edward.
Yes. Obviously there are vast improvements from when we started. The early day was you basically the only path you really had was to cut them up and see what it looked like. So you had a lot of scrap parts. People are still doing that today, to be very honest with you, depending on the application and the part you're building. Sometimes that's your only solution. Obviously, people are still utilizing heavily CT scanning, X-ray, to get into parts. But I do think that's an area of improvement that we need to find solutions, especially when you have, we talk production, right? Production is not always a million parts where you have time to go out and really do a lot of development. In the world of aviation and other industries, development can be 3 or 4 parts a year or, longer. And so you really don't have the time or the availability to scrap parts just to see where you're going. So today, I think we have come a long way around how we're inspecting parts, but I think there's vast improvement that still needs to be done for sure.
And so, I mean, you've kind of built this picture. It was development, led to production gains. Guys wanted access to production gains. Now they're going into production. What do you think is going to tip this over to maybe unlock more performance, more access to production in the future?
Well, I think you've already seen a lot of it, right? I think you're going to see the number of installed base machines in North America and globally have grown drastically, over the last 5 to 10 years. When we joked that we were the global leader of the old days of Morris with 20 plus machines. Today, there's probably in North America 20, 30 people that have that many machines, right? And that's not including OEMs and others that have, the install base. So I think that, driving the technology, and, making it more affordable, let's be honest, right? These machines today still are very, very expensive. The maintenance programs are very, very expensive. When they are down, you can't afford them to have them down for very long because, you got to pay for those machines and making parts. But at the same time, these machines have, the inputs have gotten better. And what I mean by that is, the material suppliers have gotten better. The software on the front end is getting better to eliminate a lot of your risk as far as build failures. And on the back end, right, we've gotten better on inspection. But at the same time, how do you finish them? How do you remove powder? All those things have gotten, much more advanced than they have been. We get stuck on the machine a lot of the time, but the front end and the back end is just as important. And I think as we advance the technology, it's going to help both those areas.
Excellent. And Nathan asks, what kind of sectors do you see taking advantage of additive manufacturing in the near future or today?
Yeah. So I think historically we've seen a lot of use in additive around or for aerospace applications and medical. I think as the technology proliferates more and more into the market, we're going to see automotive. There's the electrification of automobiles and aircraft, things like that. So there's a lot of work being done with battery cells and things like that with additive. So I would anticipate that both industrial segments, automotive, some consumer goods, firearms, those areas are on the horizon.
Yeah, and for me to add there too, I think at the end of the day, right, we get stuck on in the past, the people that have been able to afford the technology are the ones that have been promoting and advancing the technology. So aviation, medical device guys, space propulsion guys are doing a lot of it. But I think as we have a much more educated user today, when I'm talking about the engineers, right, the design engineers, you have a lot of guys now that are actually getting degrees out of universities around the technology. It's no longer self-taught, which is a big plus. But I think that all of this will go and lead to other industries. You're starting to hear a lot more about automotive getting involved with it. And a lot of the automotive started in the Formula One or even NASCAR industries, right, where they tested out components. And even then you would always hear, oh, yeah, I can never take this in mainstream because they're too expensive, right? But there's other advances around other additive technologies like binder jet that's going to help me get into those some of those other industries that maybe we couldn't get with laser or those higher scale volume type components.
So there's a question from Owen. He's kind of interested. What advice would you give to a founder, innovator, lots of AM experience, but has never started their own company?
Yeah. Certainly what I would tell somebody is go out and get an advisory board. So leverage senior folks, veterans that have started their own business. And it doesn't have to be in the same field. There's just pitfalls around taxes and workers' comp and things like that. So the more advice, the more folks that you can get to help you start a business, regardless of the technology, the better.
Yeah, that's I mean, I would say that's he's hit it right on the head as far as what's capable, as far as getting advice from the right people. And that's even on the front end, before you even buy a single piece of equipment, you need to get the right advice, because what you think might be a great piece of equipment for one application may not fit other applications. And so now you got yourself stuck in one area that may not allow you to go in other directions. So really it's getting, and one thing about additive industry as a whole, it's a pretty open group. You know, there's a lot of people that want to see this technology advance, and everyone's pretty open to try to help each other with it.
Yeah, that's very true. AMUG would be an example. That's the first thing that jumps into my mind. Very unique conference.
Yep.
Additive Manufacturing User Group, in case that's an acronym that no one's familiar with. So there's a question from David. What do you think is the biggest misconception about metal AM?
There's a lot of them.
There is.
All right, top three.
Yeah, I think one is this idea that it's easy. You touched on it in the intro to this session. You know, some of the sales guys out there, the equipment sales guys, will have you believe that you just, you know, you have a CAD model and you touch a green button and poof, you've got a part. And the truth is there's a lot of physics at play. You've got to understand support structures and stress that's being built into the part. Those are important things that'll make or break you.
Yeah, and in most cases, I would say too that, you know, key of mine is the additive. Once again, I said it earlier, it's a small part of the overall, you know, vision or growth of a part or component, right? We probably machine or touch a part 99% of the time after it's grown in some way, shape, or form. Have it be heat treat, machining, inspection. So there's a lot more to it than just growing a part.
Nice. There is a question about kind of comparable technologies. So how does some of the latest advances in investment casting compare to metal 3D printing?
Sure. So, you know, a technology like investment casting that's fairly well traveled and maybe some would say old school, they're able to leverage 3D printing as well using wax patterns. So there are 3D printers that can print wax patterns, and that speeds up the development. We see that question came in from Jack up at Aristocast. He's got a great company. We use them for some quick turn castings.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, right, I think there is you know, what they're utilizing. And when you work with a casting house or for investment casting houses, right, you always hear, you know, lead times are terrible, they take forever. But when you utilize 3D printing the way that they are, you can get pretty quick lead times and you drive a lot of cost on the tooling up front, right? So it's the way that they're using it today is very important for lead time for sure. I think I have had conversation with other casting companies and even machinists that say, you're taking work away from me. You're going to make me obsolete. And my comment is always no. Additive metal is just another tool. Yep. Yeah, we may take a percentage away from the casting market, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of applications that we'll never be able to touch in the casting market. Same as machining or metal injection molding, other technologies that will always be a great technology for certain applications. So what, you know, for us, when we get a program, right, there's a lot of times that someone comes with us, say, I want you to 3D print this part. And we'll say, be very honest, no, it's a better casting part. You know, you're better out going that route. We try to really drive people in the right direction for what's up for their application.
Yeah, actually, when we've spoken about the synergy between machining and printing on that side of it, but you mentioned the synergy between casting and printing. It's interesting how much these work together, not necessarily anything working in an isolated manner anymore.
Yeah, in some cases, you can still 3D print a part that will be a casting in the future, right? A lot of times, all you're trying to do as an engineer in that area is form, fit, function. Hey, can I make a part that kind of fits my needs, and then I'll go down the correct path for production.
So I do want to touch in a little bit. You know, we kind of mentioned all these different technologies, all this evolution of the market, the industry. Where do you see Velo 3D fitting into this?
Yeah, we're excited to leverage the Velo technology. You know, we see them as innovators, twofold: the ability with the non-contact recoder and the ability to build parts with minimal support structures. And so we're anxious to get our first two machines and learn more about what's possible. And, you know, we see that as a way to differentiate Vertex from other service providers out there. So we're excited.
You mentioned two machines. You want to mention which metals you're getting access to?
Yeah, well, we currently have 718 here running. Machine's been up and running now, making parts for about a month. We'll be taking delivery of the Hassaloy machine first week of September. Give us about 2 or 3 weeks to go through the SAT here, and then we should be end of September, beginning of October, ready to start making some parts there for customers. You know, the intent when we brought these machines in, it kind of goes back to our philosophy as owners, was we weren't going to go buy a bunch of machines and go look for work. People are doing that. Other service centers are doing that. We're going to really work with the customer base and try to find the right application. So with the machines we brought in for Velo, they're supported by a couple customers, not 100% by any means, but it's enough to get us the capability to use the machines, learn from the machines, and kind of really drive what we need to use those machines for. We're, at the end of the day, we want to have multiple technologies around the additive world, additive metals at our hands to be able to really evaluate which one's the right one for that application.
And I think we've got some images of some of the types of parts. We could maybe share some of that, but I also want to remind everyone this is a live session. If you do have any questions, please send them. We'd love to hear from you. Love to address some of your questions real time. And I do want to mention, or I kind of want to ask and find out from you, what type of applications are you seeing on the Velo 3D system?
To be honest with you, we're still kind of young, as far as the machine having it for a month. But we've already had conversations around heat exchangers, compressors, turbine housings are a great fit. At the end of the day, we're building parts that have ceilings that are right around 5 degrees or less as far as the build orientation, which is pretty impressive. The roughness is still something we're working through as far as what the roughness really looks like, but the fact that it's able to build is pretty impressive.
Very nice. I'm kind of picking up. There's definitely a pragmatic approach. You guys are not trying to sell anything you don't have, but there's also a lot of motivation, a lot of passion. And you mentioned passion before. So what is it that motivates you? What is it that keeps you going? And maybe Steve, if you could kick this one off.
Sure. I think all of us leadership at Vertex, we enjoy manufacturing, and we want to see that grow. The competitiveness around manufacturing in the United States, not only from a cost or capability standpoint, but there's also national defense ramifications. So the ability to take a young technology and industrialize that, that's something that's pretty exciting and gets me juiced.
Very cool. Tim?
No, I think Steve had it right. I mean, at the end of the day, right, we want to really take it a step further as far as, almost, I think Steve said it before, almost like unfinished business with Morris, right? Was that we did a lot of work with development. We obviously very instrumental in taking a few parts in the aviation market that everybody knows about to production. And we feel like there's we just didn't get there. We didn't finish go across the finish line there. So for me, I really look forward to how we can help other customers take their parts to production, and how we can really utilize our technologies, our capabilities, and our people to get there.
And I have to ask, I know the answer, but it's just kind of a fun conversation. When you're sitting around thinking about, we're going to make a brand new company, how do you figure out on a name? How do you go about deciding a Vertex?
I'll let Steve answer this one. This is all him.
Yeah, there was a lot that went into that, but it is pretty important to build a brand around a name and an image. And so Vertex, is definition is the point at which two lines meet. And for us, that means traditional manufacturing and additive manufacturing coming together, and that's Vertex.
Nice. Makes a lot of sense. Kind of leverage that same synergy we were talking about before. And kind of in that context, I do want to spend maybe a couple more seconds here. What do you see yourselves doing differently on a day-to-day basis? Not on the big things, but on a day-to-day basis, what do you feel you do differently that leads you into having capabilities others don't have in the long term?
That's a tough question, but at the end of the day, I think what we are capable of doing, and one thing I love about a small business is that you get myself, Greg, and Steve in a room, and we make a decision, and we move forward in pretty quick path, right? It doesn't take us a long time to figure out what's needed and what do we need to go accomplish something. So I do like the fact that we can get together as ownership and move very quickly to help solve a problem. If that means a new technology, a new employee, that's one of the advantages I really like to see what we can do and kind of what we've been doing.
Steve, any thoughts on that?
No, I think Tim did a good job summarizing that. We had success before leveraging integrity and innovation and nimbleness, and that's what we want to continue to do.
Nice. And then I do want to kind of give you a chance. Any closing thoughts, and what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, really, I'm that guy. That's my job. Tim Warden or T Warden at vertexmanufacturing.com. I'll even give you my phone number, 513-617-8386. Please reach out to me. It's even to ask questions. At the end of the day, I mentioned earlier, we want to find the right customers. We want to develop customer relationships. But hey, at the same time, if you have any questions around the industry, technology, please feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thanks. Steve, any closing comments from you?
No, I want to thank Velo for providing us this opportunity. I think it's a great platform, and look forward to chatting with you all again.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today on our 3D30. Please stay tuned. The schedule will be changing as we go into trade show season. So make sure you follow Velo 3D to get the latest information on our next session. Make sure you follow Vertex Manufacturing and obviously bring them any parts or challenging opportunities that you may have. So once again, thank you and have a great weekend.
Great. Thanks, guys. See you later.